thing from the past.
Yeah.
And I said, how can I tell all these guys, kids, old men that?
So now, because you do have, you have that strong history thing.
Yeah.
Were you always aware of history? Were your parents particularly political, or was it just an interest?
Yeah, my mother, great political. My father was for Roosevelt, let's put it this way. My mother, though, she was a real old socialist. She was for the socialist guy. Oh, he ran for president so many times. When I was teaching history, and we were very bold, and the Bay Show was great school, and what they do, you could invite speakers in.
Oh.
And we had Eleanor Roosevelt in.
Wow. Did you meet Eleanor Roosevelt?
Yeah, she was in the classroom.
What year was that about?
I don't know. I'm telling you, I gotta look it up.
Had to be the 50s, right?
It was, 57, 58. I better make sure to find when she died. Eleanor Roosevelt we had in, and then when we were doing section, something new, one of the teachers had a women's course, a course on women, famous women in history. So we got the idea that let's invite some women of that age. I had my mother in. She came in and she talked about with other women.
How was she?
She was for Norman Thomas, that was the one. Norman Thomas. He was a socialist that ran every 4 years for president.
Now your mother was born here.
She was, yeah.
So how did where did that come from?
She was very active. The Morris had the money, the Caseys on the other side, they were generally poorer. And nothing was an island. Her cousin used to bring a horse and wagon, vegetables in every morning into the town of Mullingar to sell them and all this.
She was so famous for Mullingar.
So she'd feed, And what happened there, today, her kids, her grandchildren, they own 6 supermarkets. One in London, one in Spain, so they can have cheap holidays. So they were different. They came from nothing and made a lot of money.
So that's where your mother got.
My mother was like that too. She was very good at. She became a real estate operator. She has a realtor license. Oh yeah, she's very proud of that. I'm very proud of my father wouldn't take the test because he was afraid she'd fail.
And so now your class, or you and a bunch of other teachers, had Eleanor Roosevelt in all your classes?
Yes. Yeah. And she was invited, I can't take credit for it, she was invited the year before and came the year after I had begun there. So I didn't start Ruth Kimbernet started that. And the only one, we had Norman Thomas. That's it. I had to have Norman Thomas. He came in. Socialist.
Did your mother make you happy?
Oh, she was there. She was there. And then we went, the last one was, we invited Bobby Kennedy.
Did he come?
He accepted, but he was shot in the meantime. He was running for president. Remember, California, he won the primary.
Now, how did the kids react to that?
That was upsetting, but I remember.
But you're a big Lincoln fan. Abraham Lincoln, who was a
Republican, yes, but you'd never think it today. Republican, he'd be out there in left field too.
Yeah.
Oh, he was a character. Lincoln, he was, this. We used to use the line when he was running, and he lost practically every election he ran in. And what they asked is, well, what about your income now? They had this house in Springfield. And he tried to give the impression that, of course, his wife's family put up the money. But there was never any proof of that. And he was a lawyer. And when they asked him about the money, the line he gave was actually published in the newspaper in Illinois. My story is the short and simple annals of the poor. but you didn't get all the figures. And the way he made his
He
money...
gave the appearance.
That's the secret, the very word, the appearance. He was tall, he was gawky, he was a real Midwest hillbilly. As a lawyer, he joined a firm that was defending the railroads. And the railroads were really gobbling up an awful lot of land. If the railroad went through your town, they wanted to own about half the town, a third of the town. And so the lawyers that represented the railroads, in arguing before the legislatures, they brought Lincoln along because he was a local boy. But they didn't allow him to say anything. He never testified in many of them. But he got
Just
the money.
needed somebody local.
That's it. And he got it, yeah.
Boy, did they regret that later.
You said it. You said it.
So now, so it was like as a child, or who had the interest in history? Both of your parents?
Good question.
or-
Yeah. Oh, you
or-
read the newspapers.
Yeah, I
My
feel
father-
like people were much more.
My father, I tell you
Informed.
the M. You know the M? Your hand as a kid makes an M. Well, mine made an M, and I couldn't get over that.
Yeah.
Because my father's first job was an automobile mechanic. And he'd come home from work, the grease would still be in the crevices, and there was an M, and he'd make it so he'd see, there's your name. And thing. He would then sit down and do my homework, work with me, and teach me to write.
That's amazing.
And I was 5, before school, and I could write my name beforehand I went in. And they both worked on the reading and all that.
I say it's amazing because it's a lot to sit with a kid
It
after
is.
a long day of work.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's a lot.
He used to go up, he was active in the union. Lincoln Motors had a garage for the wealthy up what is now Lincoln Center. Lincoln Center was not named after Lincoln. It's the Art Center now. That was called Lincoln Square because Henry Ford had his Lincoln sales. thing
You
there.
told me that great story about the cars,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Wasn't that
That was it. It was there.
your dad worked for Lincoln
Yes.
Mercury?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, they
and
were
so-
known as Lincoln because they sold only the top line of the Ford product up there. Because they're up, now they're on the west side. The ideal place would be on the wealthy east side of the park. But no way could you have a garage on the east side of the park.
Oh.
Or sales. No. That was it.
So now tell me about the cars. Didn't your dad? Somehow you wound up with good cars.
Oh
out of
yeah,
this deal.
because what you had was the Lincoln. There's a lot of business. Later on, I used to deliver props for the ad agency to the theater on Columbus Circle. There was a theater there, a TV theater, first one in New York. It wasn't in the RCA building. Milton Berle. Any star could keep the car only for a year, and then you have to sell and get a new one to keep up the image. So these would be then put into Lincoln. We got to get rid of these cars, And we had, what's his name? The guy I just mentioned, the comedian, Milton Berle.
Berle's car.
And there was a car that was
Did you drive that car?
dream car. I probably was too young. I don't remember driving it. The one I did drive was a gray Lincoln Zephyr convertible.
Ah,
It was owned by Bert Lahr.
Bert Lahr.
Bert Lahr, the Wizard of Oz, the lion.
Oh,
Yeah.
the Cowardly Lion.
He was him, yeah. And that was his car.
What color was the interior? of
That
the
was
car?
gray. God, I couldn't. Like a blonde.
And the exterior
was
was
white.
white. The paint was white.
Gray.
Oh,
Like
gray.
Like gray, yeah. And, oh yeah.
What year of a car was that? 19.
Had to be the 50s.
So your father still had the connection with Lincoln-Mercury at that point, somehow.
No, he had left, but yeah, he still knew people there.
Oh, right.
Well, he was active in the union, and This is the other thing we had. My mother and I would have the growler, the beer container, and we'd go up to the bar the bar, where was the bar downtown?
Is it in Manhattan? Or is
No,
this
no,
in
we'd
Mount
be
Sinai?
uptown. No, this was in the city.
This was in the city.
We'd be uptown as a bar on the west side, around Columbus Circle, and we'd go in. With a kid, you had to go in the ladies' entrance. There was always every bar, that had separate. And we'd go in with the beer, and in two containers, the growlers. One was beer, the other was the union funds. The dues for the union paid, and we'd get that, and you never know who was in the bar. It was a very busy bar,
Is that where you went to
We'd be
collect
sitting-
the?
and that's where the guys who had collected the dues and put it into the growler. We'd leave the beer and take the growler home. We'd walk down to the subway, 59th Street. You'd be afraid, You have several $100 there. But they didn't bother a lady and the kid. Yeah.